Good evening, y'all. Welcome to Israel Vision. As you guys know, the world is going through changes, and there is a lot of us that are also going through changes. A lot of us are dealing with hardships, spiritual awakenings, realizing that this is not life. There's a lot of things going on for everybody, including physically, mentally, emotionally. And there's things going on worldwide, as well as things going on for each of us in our own personal journeys. And I do know that it is a collective thing, so that if I'm going through it, then I know everybody else is going through it at different levels. And as you know, a lot of us are going through a big change right now. I mean, this is considered one of the biggest awakenings in history that's transpiring at this time period right now. A lot of people are realizing that we are in apocalyptic times. And as you guys know, apocalypse means the unveiling. And that means that things are being uncovered. And so I want to remind you guys, as we look at the examples in history, we realize that these time periods have similarities. And if we know that all these things have similarities, then that means that we can look at the examples of the people before us and the things that transpired, because we know that God is a God of order. We know He's a God of synchronicities. He has a lot of things that will help you connect the dots. And He also gave us these examples so that we can get through these times. So I said all that to say, I guess you can say I'm going through one of my wilderness periods. And there's a story in the Bible when Moses was first leading the Israelites out of Egypt. He was leading them out of bondage. And if you guys think about it, a lot of us are coming out of the bondage of the matrix, because if you think that we're free, we're not. If somebody can tell you, the taxes you have to pay, and you got to be at work at 8 and this, and now granted, you can say no to all that, but then you have jail, then you have no home. All these things happen. So we are in a form of bondage. So as a lot of us are coming out of the matrix, we find ourselves in a bit of a wilderness where we're trying to detach from these jobs. We're trying to sort out our emotions and our spirituality. A lot of us are really truly trying to find God, and not the God that we've been being told about, but the true God, the truth, everything. We are truly trying to crack the code, and we're going through a lot of things. And in the Bible, when Moses was when Moses was leading the children out of Egypt, they were saying, okay, now you've got us in this place, okay, right? They've been taken from Egypt, where even though they were slaves, they had some type of food, some type of resources. And so Moses gets them, and they're walking in the wilderness, and they're like, okay, now you've got us out of this place, but we have no food. You've basically brought us in the desert to die. And Moses was telling them, no, don't worry, the power of God, everything's going to be okay. And He was going to bring bread from heaven. Well, God gave Moses the power so that when he hit the rock with the staff, the water came out of the rock and they were able to drink. And that at night, the manna would fall from heaven. Or it might have been in the daytime. It's in, here I can tell you, if you guys do want to read that story, it is actually in Exodus chapter 16. So if you did want to read the story about Moses and the manna and all that, it's in Exodus 16. But basically, the rule was, though, that when they collected this manna, to only collect for that day and for the amount of their family. They were warned not to collect any more. And on the 6th day, they would collect double, because as you know, on the Sabbath, we're supposed to rest. We're not supposed to work. So on the 6th day, they were able to collect double for that day and for the next day. So they didn't have to collect on the 7th day, and they could just rest. But the thing was, is if they collected any more or tried to hoard it or save it, it would be rotten by the next day. Of course, not on the 7th day, because they were given that extra. So it would still be good for the Sabbath day. But like any other day, say if it was Monday, Tuesday, say they collected over what they needed, it would rot. They wouldn't be able to eat it. God was wanting them to completely trust on Him, to completely not worry about tomorrow. Trust in me for today. As long as your needs are met today, do not worry about it. Do not do not over crowd your fridge. Do not, worry about the money, basically. I'm going to take care of you. And I brought that instance up. And let me read this. Let me read this along with this to tie in my whole point. The wilderness is locale for intense experience, a stark need for food, isolation, danger, and divine deliverance. Wilderness can mean a place to escape, recharge, learn, teach, and even find yourself. It connects you to your environment. Now, those were biblical or spiritual meanings of wilderness. But let me read the Webster's definition. Wilderness, an uncultivated, uninhabited, and inhospitable region. A neglected or abandoned area of a garden or town. A position of disfavor, especially in political context. I've come to realize that some of us are in a figurative wilderness, but we are also in physical wildernesses. We are uncultivated. We can be uninhabited, inhospitable. We have neglected and abandoned ourselves. There's so much self-care that I could tend to right now that I have not been doing. I've been neglecting and abandoning myself. Now, granted, I've had a lot of progression. I go to work. I don't just sit here all day. I don't. I have a lot of things I actually do. I go to work and there's a lot of people that I, that assist me. We kind of assist each other physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I'm not just sitting here. But needless to say, there's a lot of things that I, in myself, feel are neglected. So when I say wilderness, some of us are not just in a spiritual wilderness. We're uncultivated. We're uninhabited. Our whole system, body, mind, and soul is in a wilderness state. Some of us are coming out of this matrix. Some of us are coming out of these old ideas, we're coming up out of her, which is another verse in the Bible. We are coming up out of stages and frames of mind. We are coming up out of religion. We are coming up out of self. We are coming up out of self and into God, into spirit. And so it's such a beautiful thing. But during this transformation time, during this wilderness that we are enduring, that we are going through, it is so important for us to lean on God. And I said that because several times in the last month, I've transitioned from my job full-time to part-time, which, as you know, cut part of my pay. Well, there's been other things that God has made for me to sustain that and to keep going without it affecting me in a way to where I cannot pay my bills. And I keep getting stressed out and I keep getting stressed out. And this is not the first time that God gave me manna. He's given it to me before. He reminded me of the manna. And I want to tell for any of you who is going through it, you seem to be stressed out, but it always seems like just in the nick of time to be better. You might feel like, you don't have the rent and it's the 30th, but by the 1st in the afternoon, the rent is there, but you didn't know how on the 30th you were going to pay rent. These little things, if you're truly trusting in God, that does not make you exempt from suffering or going through it. But what it does do is it gives you a covering. And I'm going to tell you right now, God is more than enough. If you're in the desert, he will give you manna. If you are thirsty, he will bring he will bring water out of the rock. And some of us are in different seasons. So you might not be in your wilderness season. You might still be in Egypt and you might still be getting, beat on and still be going through it to where you don't see the manna or the water coming out the rock. But that's because you might not be in your wilderness season yet. I don't want to say anything to steer anybody wrong. But for those of you who are in the wilderness like me, for those of you who are going through that transition, just remember, God is going to provide for you just what you need. Don't be stressed if you don't have an overage that's going to last you a month. Because truly, if everything's shut down anyways, none of that's going to matter. If you know to trust in God and you know that he's going to come through, It doesn't matter if it's the 30th and your rent's due the next day, because you already know he can rain down money from multiple places. So I guess I said all that to say, trust in God, you guys. Just keep trusting, keep pushing. Do not give up. Realize that you might be in your wilderness season and he's only allowing you to have enough for that day. It's not to say that he's not going to give you an abundance, but think about it. If all your needs are met for that day, do you really need to worry about tomorrow? And I think he puts us through those seasons for that reason. So you can fully trust in him. He keeps showing you, okay, we got right here. It was right before the nick of time and I came through. You could trust me. Right in the nick of time and I came through. You can trust me. You know, some of us, he's trying to show us that just so we will trust in him and lean on him and quit stressing. Quit worrying about tomorrow. Some of you are in the wilderness and you're only getting enough manna for today. So with that being said, I hope all of you are having an excellent evening. There is different seasons, you guys. Everybody's not in the same season. So realize the season you're in. This word is not going to be for everybody. But for those of you who it is for, he got you today. And that's all you need to worry about. Until next time, don't forget to shine your lights.